All right, guys, today I've got something a little bit different here. I'm going to be coding out a JavaScript HTML clock for my daughter's bedroom. This is going to be the software side of it, and then later on, I'm going to do another video where I actually create the physical clock itself with a screen on it that will have this displayed on it, as well as a stoplight feature where it has like a wake-sleep thing for her, so that even if she can't tell time yet, she'll know when she can get up because the green light will come on and that type of thing. So without further ado, we're going to jump in and start coding this thing. So the features that I want for this is that it needs to have a digital clock, it needs to have the date displayed, it needs to have an analog clock, and it needs to have a day and night mode. So we're going to go ahead and kind of just start off in here. I'm in a blank pen in CodePen. If you've never used CodePen, it's fantastic. But I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to start coding this up. And when I'm done, I'm going to leave a link to it in the description of this video so you can go check it out. So the way I like to approach this type of thing is to start kind of doing just a draft of what I want the HTML code to look like as a scaffolding, and then I can start building out the functions and the style of it and that kind of thing. So let's go ahead and jump here on the HTML side. So I'm going to go ahead and create just a blank div. And then inside that div, I'm going to make a couple of sections. In this first section, I know I'm going to make this kind of the left side of the clock, and it's going to house the date. So I'm just going to make this a div, and I'm going to give it an ID of date. Class of date. This is actually going to be populated with JavaScript, so we'll leave it like that. And then in here, we're also going to make another div, and we're going to give it an ID digital clock. And a class of digital clock. And then in this second section, I know that I want this to be the analog clock, so I'm going to go ahead and say we'll make a div with an ID, analog clock. Let's fix that. All right, so the digital clock's actually probably going to be pretty easy because we're just going to basically populate this div right here with the digital time as well as the date. We're just going to populate that with the date. So the analog clock, however, is going to have some pieces to it that we're going to have to animate around and move to actually make the digital clock. So the parts for that, well, we have to know the parts that the clock has. So to do that, what I'm going to have to do is make a div and in here, and I know that we are at least going to need 3 divs for all of the hands of the analog clock. All right, so we're going to go ahead and make 3 divs for those hands. And just based off the way that I know the CSS is going to have to work for this, we're going to have to nest these down a little. So each one of these is going to have a div inside it. So what we'll do is this first div is going to be like a container for the hand, and then the second div is going to be like the actual hand piece itself. So I'm going to say the class hours container. Then the div inside it, I'm going to have it be hours. Then this one's going to be minutes container. Now the div inside here is going to be minutes. We'll do the same thing for seconds. And then I think for each one of these respective hours, minutes, and seconds, we're going to have to be able to control those with JavaScript. So I'm going to go ahead and just add IDs to these. Depends on how we do it. But might as well go ahead and add some IDs on. All right, so there we go. So I think this is going to be the structure for it here. In order to give a little bit of styling to the clock itself, we're going to add a class to this, or to the overall clock, rather. We're going to add a class. So we'll do clock. The way that I like to approach this is instead of going ahead and styling things, I like to go ahead and start working on some of the JavaScript for it. Now, obviously, for the analog clock, I'm going to have to kind of add some CSS to design it, lay it out. But let's go ahead and jump over to the JavaScript side and start kind of building that out just a little bit. I know I need to go ahead and grab a few elements here. The date is one, and the clock is the other. So the digital clock is the other. So we're going to go ahead and do those first. So we're going to say const date element equals document.getElementById by date, and then I'll grab this and get the digital clock. So we'll make that digital time element. So we've selected those two things. So for the date, I think I'm going to go ahead and use a library that I really like. It's called Moments for JavaScript. It's fantastic. So I'm going to grab it from CDN, pop it in here. Moment lets you do dates and times really well, so you can convert time really easy. You can format dates and time zones and all kinds of stuff. Really, really nice. Much better to work with than the built-in date time crap in JavaScript. I don't mean to call it crap, but it's kind of annoying to work with. I really like to work functionally, where we basically have functions that just return things. Makes it really easy to reason about your code. So that's kind of how I'm going to approach this. So we're going to make a constant called getCurrentDate, and we're going to set that equal to, I'm going to use arrow functions here. And we're going to use moment dot format. So when you say moment, to use moment, you can feed a date into this first function here, and then it's going to obviously return some methods. But if you don't feed a date into it, it just gets the current date and time, and then returns. One of the things it returns is this format method, where we can format it. We can format it different ways, and then you go to their website and you can look at how to format your stuff. The way I want to format the date is that I want to have the month, day, year, and I want the month spelled out. So to do that, we do capital M, 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 capital D, little o for the day here, and then comma, we're going to go capital Y, Y, Y for the full length, the full year. Sorry, another Y there. The 4-digit year. All right, so that will give us the current date. Now I'm going to just jump down here and test that that works. So I want to go ahead and build me a clock function that's going to sort of return stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and make the clock function here. Const clock. So like I said, I like to work functionally. So I think what I'm going to do here is make another function that actually does the displaying. So I'm going to say const, and I mean you don't have to write it this way, but it's just the way I like to do it. Display and so all this function is responsible for is actually displaying the date. It doesn't care what the date is. So it's going to take in a single argument, which is date. And when you're writing arrow functions, if it only has one argument, you don't have to put any brackets. So we'll just do date, and it's simply going to do the display. So date element dot inner HTML equals date. So the date that gets passed in. Now this isn't exactly perfectly functional because it's not just returning something, it's actually, I guess, updating state, but I'm going to overlook that for now. So the point is it is broken down into easy to reason about functions, at least in this case. So this display date was really all we need to run, and we need to pass the date into it. So I'm going to do display date. We're going to pass in this get current date function. All right, so we're going to pass that in, and this says we have some kind of error. So I've done something. Unexpected token. Okay. Oh, got an extra equal sign there. All right. Still an unexpected token. Oh gosh, I'm derping all over the place. So clock equals that. Okay. This is what happens when you try to like write some code on a video. All right, so there's the clock. This displays the date, and at this point, I think I should be seeing. I would think I would be seeing that displayed down here. That's kind of weird. Oh, duh, we're not running clock. All right, so to update the time on a regular basis, that's what I've got to do. I've actually got to make a clock work. So to do that, I guess I'm just going to create an interval. So we'll just use the set interval function, and into that we will pass clock. And we'll update every, because this is going to have the time in it, so it needs to update every 1 second. So 1,000 milliseconds there. Yeah. Now we notice we have our date down here formatted like we wanted. November 9th, 2017. Now, I kind of want this to be formatted a little bit differently. I don't want the abbreviation for November. How do I guess I need to add another M here, right? Is that right? Yeah, November 9th, 2017. Sweet. All right. Now that we know that works, let's go ahead and attempt to display the time below it. So, I guess in order to do that, oh yeah, up here on this, if you're not familiar, again, with arrow functions, if you don't put curly braces around this, it's an implicit return. So it's when we run this function, it's just straight returning this this moment piece. So I'm gonna copy this, and I'm gonna change this to get time. For the time, I want to do something a little different. Because I'm going to have an analog clock, I need to be able to get these. Sorry if you hear Legos in the background, by the way. That's my little girl playing in the other room in there. So anyway, we're going to get the different. We're going to get the different types, the different times. So like minute, second, hour that we can use, or the whole time that we can use for the analog clock. So I'm going to go ahead and put type in here as, and we're going to use that in a little bit. So right here, I'm going to first, I'm just going to have this return. And it's going to return, I guess actually, I need the same thing, right? All right, so I want the same moment, but this time I need an hour, a time format. So hour, minutes, second. I've used moment quite a bit, if you can't tell, and then whether it's AM or PM. So that should work. That should give us the 1-digit hour, the 2-digit minute, and the 2-digit second, and then whether it's AM or PM over here. So by default, that should just return that. So the next thing that we want to do is be able to display it. So we'll do it this same way. All right, so this should display the time. So we're going to add that to our clock function that fires on the interval. And with any luck, we will get a time. Undefined. Display digital time. Display digital time. Digital time element.enter equals time. Oh, I'm not passing anything in. Get time. Not under there. And there we go. Now we have time. And we see that the seconds are actually ticking because of this interval that is refreshing every 1 second. I'm sure there's some better way to do that, but whatever. It's just what came into my mind to do this. So there we go. We now have our digital date and our digital time. So, and they're ticking along. So now I think the best thing to do is to go ahead and start adding some style to this so we can see what it's going to look like and we can see the analog clock take shape. Because if I don't have the hands and stuff, then I can't actually, make the clock do anything. So let's go ahead and add that in. All right, so when I do my CSS, I actually use SAS or SCSS. Just it's far better. If you don't know about that, then go check it out. But I think everybody pretty much uses preprocessors now for CSS. Pretty much the same syntax, but it allows nesting and that kind of thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually copy and paste over what I always copy and paste over. box sizing border box, because that's the smart way to do things. And make sure that I have normalize on to normalize all my CSS junk, because CSS can be a butt. So we're going to come down here, and overall we're going to start with the clock. We're going to make, we're going to say clock. And we're going to use Flexbox because Flexbox is amazing. I'm going to set its position to relative because that's also the smart thing to do. And we're going to go ahead and align items. So this is a Flexbox thing. You know, I can't type. And I know that the screen that I'm going to put this on has a fixed width. So we're going to kind of make this fixed width specifically for that. So its width, I know, is 640 pixels by 480 pixels. Already have a background picked out for the clock. So we're going to say background. I know that I want the background to be, copy this from my assets in CodePen. Some background's going to be this image right here, which is like this huge thing. So let's fix that by saying background size. Helps if you put a semicolon. And now, yeah, cool. So now this is like 640 by 480 clock thingy here. So I know that I want the inside pieces. So the first div that comes after that. So sorry, that's not a div. Those are sections. So the first sections, these sections right here. There's two of them, and I'm going to go ahead and make them width 320 pixels. And the padding, put some kind of padding around here. Just start with like 10 pixels or something. Just separate those out. All right, so now we've got our two sections. Did that change much? Yeah, so now we see that we've aligned it center in there, and it should be split into two pieces. And now we can sort of come down and we can start styling the digital clock. So we're going to grab class, the digital clock. I do copy and paste a lot. It's probably bad practice, but it's kind of the thing that I do. But the digital clock, we want to do some things. So I'm just going to start styling it here. All right, so that text, that date time text thingy is looking pretty good. Maybe adjust the shadow here a little bit. Make it stand off a little more. And now we know kind of what that looks like. So now we can move down to the annoying thing, the analog clock. I'm going to go ahead and actually paste in a bit of code here that I've got handy. And the reason I'm doing this partially is to speed this up, but it's because, like I said, I did some research before. So actually, I'm just going to paste that in. We should get a clock, yeah, with the hands on it. And I already styled that up. And so this, let's just walk through it instead of writing it out, because I don't want to do that again. So we make a clock border radius 100%. We fix the formatting here. We make a border radius of 100. We give it a border of 4 pixels solid. So that's what we see here. And that's this blue. That's how I knew what the blue color was. And then the URL, this is a SVG clock face with the numbers on it. And then we're, of course, not repeating it. And we kind of set its background size and stuff to fit it in here. Like I said, if you want to see this code, I'm going to put a link to this pin after the video. And then, so we sort of do that, and we make this after element, which is the little center dot. We center it up in there. And then for the minutes container, hours container, seconds container, we make them all absolute, and kind of center them all up in here, and give all of the hands the colors that they have, and the seconds hand, all that good stuff. This is just basically building the face of this clock. I'm really more concerned about the code to run the clock, so let's jump over here and actually make this clock tick. So to do that, I'm going to create a constant. Call it analog time element. This one's going to be an object, and it's going to contain all the different elements that we want to access. And those elements should be so now we have our object, and we need to get the current time. So now we need to be able to get the time. All right, so now when I said to pass type in here, we're going to have to be able to get the time for this. So we can't just return the whole time, because we need the time of each individual hand. And let me explain why. We need like seconds, minutes, hours. And that's because we're going to have to correlate the rotation of these hands to like CSS to move them around. And we're going to have to change those based off of, we're going to have to basically transfer the each second, minute, and hour to a degree, a number of degrees that it needs to turn in a second, or that each one of these hands need to turn in a second to make it a proper clock. So I need to be able to return each one of those to be able to do some math on them. So up here, I'm just going to say if the type is second, so something like that. I want to return this to return moment, but the only thing that I want for a moment is the seconds. Okay. Pretty cool, right? That should work. And then we'll duplicate this a couple more times. Awesome. Now we can pass a type in here and like totally get something back. So let's open up the console in CodePen and make sure that that works. So I guess I will just console log get time, right? Right? Okay, cool. Now, so cool. Oh, I've got that inside the clock, so it's like doing it multiple times. That's fine, whatever. So get time, and it's spitting the timeout down there. So, but if I pass in a string of second, I should get just a second. Awesome. Minute. And I'm going to assume that hour works. Right, yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so had to take a little pause there, and now we're back the next day. You can see this is the 10th. So in the meantime, between yesterday and today, I did jump in here and I cleaned up a little bit of the code, not much. I added mostly some more CSS in order to add a night mode. If we go ahead and add class night mode, or nighttime rather, we can see that our clock is now in this nighttime mode. So the idea there is that when the sun sets, it will switch over to nighttime. So that's done. Down here, just nighttime. It changes the background, and then obviously changes the colors for the shadows and the stuff. It changes that blue to this gray. All right, so let's jump back over here to the JavaScript and get this clock actually ticking. So what we need to do is build a function that can display the analog time. So we're going to do the same thing that we did here. So same thing as the digital time. It takes in time, and then it's going to return out. Well, actually, it's not going to return. It's just going to display it. So to do that, like I said before, we have to change some rotational properties of these hands right here. So what I'm thinking is that we're going to make some different variables in here for the different degrees of the clock hands. So let's go ahead and do that really quick. All right, so these are going to be the different degrees. So in order to turn those into degrees, we're going to have to do some math. So as we saw before, when we run this function, we get back the number of seconds. So if we think about this, we know that in order to move the seconds hand around, we have 360 degrees in the circle. And we want to move this seconds hand around, all the way around the circle, within 60 seconds in order to make a minute. So if we do a little bit of math, we know that if we need to multiply this by something in order to make that degree happen. So we need to multiply this by 6, which basically means for every second it's going to move 6 degrees. So when we are on, for example, our 60th second times 6, so 60 times 6 equals 360 degrees. So for every second it's going to move 6 degrees. And then also the minutes hand is exactly the same, because for every minute it needs to move 6 degrees. Now the hours, the math for that has to be a little bit different. So in order to figure out how many degrees the hours hand needs to turn, we basically need to take that 360 degrees and we need to divide it by 12. That should give us the correct number of degrees. So for every 1 hour, we need to move 30 degrees. So we can see it go click, click all the way around. Right? Alrighty, so let's go ahead and do that. 30 degrees. So, all right, now we actually need to change the rotation. So the property that we need to change for each one of these, if we go look at our CSS for our hours, minutes, and seconds, is we need to do a transform of the, we need to do a rotation. So we need to do transform rotate and continuously pass in the new degrees of rotation in order to simulate the clock ticking. So let's go down here and we'll go access our elements that we have. So let's take our analog time element dot seconds. Dot style. And we want to set that to rotate. That should work. Basically, we're going to say analog time element dot the seconds. We're going to change its style, its transform style. We're going to set it equal to this new degree of rotation. So if we want to get this displaying down here, we should be able to run the display analog clock. Or analog time. Passing get time. Oh, and it looks like must have misspelled let's retype that. Transform. There we go. Now, hopefully, our clock hand. Oh crap! I'm putting hours degree in here. Oh, just Now, what is our problem? Because I feel like that should be working. Transforming. What am I doing wrong? Oh. Okay, this has to have a degree. in there, and this can't be a close. Let's use backticks to overcome this weirdness. So we can do that in ES6. Oh, I'm put the wrong functions. I named this get time, not get current time. That's what I named the function up there that gets time. Okay. Will it work now? Yes, look at that. We have a seconds hand ticking around. Well, that was a little bit more painful than the analog or the digital time, but that's ticking around. So let's get the other ones working real quick, shall we? Look at that. Look at that. We've got hours and minutes all rotating around. That is pretty freaking cool. All right. I like that. That looks sweet. Let's look at the whole clock here. That is awesome. If we take our nighttime off, this is going to look great on that little Raspberry Pi screen. We get our daytime clock. We can see it ticking around. Sweet. All right. So, I mean, it could be tweaked a little bit, but some of the centering of this and stuff could be fixed. But overall, that is working pretty cool. So, I guess, you know, the next big feature and thing that I need in here is an alarm. So let's try to add in some kind of alarm real quick. Obviously, I'm not going to do the code for the Raspberry Pi at this point. Like I said at the beginning of the video, where we're going to have a stoplight type function. I am going to just have it kind of do an alarm real quick, and I'm sure I will tweak this before the final version. But you'll be able to see this code up later, so let's just make a new constant. God, I keep typing constant. Typing what I'm saying. Dude, doing code on videos is difficult. It's hard to talk and type at the same time. I'm sure you guys are also seeing all kinds of errors in my code, or just lack of work hands. There we go. All right, so the alarm, actually, is only going to probably take in one argument. It needs to take in the current time. This is why I really like arrow functions. It just makes this easy. Like, to reason about this is to say, all right, I need a function here that takes in, I'm going to call it alarm. It's going to take in a time, and from that time, it needs to determine whether or not we need to alarm. Okay, so it needs to do that every time that function runs. That's the only thing it should be concerned about. So for this, right now I guess we're just going to have a console log something. So let's open up the console, clear that out. I don't think I've got anything else going on in there. Okay, so this is going to take in like an array of times, basically, that we want the alarm to go off. And eventually this is probably going to be updated from a database that you know, can be changed without going and hard coding in the code. So let's just make us something like alarm times. They're going to be an array. And I guess they're going to be an array of objects. So we need to know when the alarm is going to start, when the alarm is going to end. So because with this, she's not going to be turning the alarm off. It's going to be flipping to a red light or green light. So it's going to go green for a while, and then it's going to end up going off. So the alarm needs to last for a period of time. So we'll do an alarm start and an alarm end property. This way we can have multiple, alarm periods set potentially. And then up here on the alarms, so this is going to take in the alarm times, and then we're going to have to sort through those times and figure out if, if it needs to alarm or not. So I'm going to shut up and kind of work through that logic because it's going to take me a while to do that while talking. We'll use filter. All right, so I spared you the insanity of figuring this out, but here's the way I'm thinking it's going to work. We run the alarms function, we pass in times, we filter through the times, so for every time inside there, we say if time, we say that if times.alarm, or if the time.alarm starts, so if the start of the alarm is less than or equal to get time, current time, get time, and the time.alarm end is greater than or equal to whatever the current time is, I really need to rename that, then console log out alarm. So we should be able to come down here and add to our loop alarms. And then we can pass in the array, so alarm times can go right in here. And then we can set a start and an end. So currently, look down here at our clock, it is 12:32. So at 12:33, we're alarming. Ha 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 ha. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That is great. So we hit 12:33 here, and now we have our alarm going off, and then we should see that the alarm stops once we hit 12:34. So I'm just going to clear this so that we see it actually stop. That means I have to wait 30 seconds. So I'll fast forward this. So we're alarming, and oh yeah, it stopped. So when we hit the 12:34, the end of the alarm. Okay, so I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to get out of this right now. Yeah, and I've already taken up enough time to do this. Listen, you guys, this is kind of the first stab at a video like this. If you've made it this far, you're like 45 minutes or an hour or something into the video, probably. I'm sorry you had to sit through all that. But if you like this type of thing, if you like the live, semi-live coding type deal, where you can kind of see the process of creating an app or a function or whatever, then drop a like on this video or a comment or something and let me know, and I'll continue to do these more long-form kind of programming style videos because, I do enjoy doing them, and the more that I do them, the better I get. So anyway, please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for the build of this actual clock, the physical build of it, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.